So what are we going to do is we're going to go straight into a question about parabolas. And so what I want you guys to do is I'm giving you a parabola like this, and you are given f of x is this, and you're given that points A, B, and C are intercepts, and D is the turning point. And this is straight from an old exam. I want you to work out the coordinates of A, B, and C, and then I want you to work out the turning point of this graph, which is D. And if you need some hints, you can put your question in the chat or you can raise your hand. But I really want to go straight into what we did in the last, basically following on from the last units. I will give you these tips that to find the y-intercept, you make x0. To find the x-intercept, you make y0. And to find the axis of symmetry, which is part of our 5-step process that we spent a lot of time on in the last units, this would be step 4. The axis of symmetry is minus b over 2a. Now, that is enough to give you some breadcrumbs to follow, but I really want you to try your best, or I want you to raise your hand. Oh, there goes my power. Can you see me?
We cannot see you, Teacher Peter, but definitely we can see the screen.
I'm back. I might be a bit in the dark.
I see. We can see a little bit.
Sorry, guys. You know how it is. Over to you guys. And let's do this. Let me zoom. Can you see it now?
Yes, I think it's perfect. We can see it. I don't know. Any of you who don't see it,
perfect.
Say something, but we can see it. We can see everything.
Perfect. Okay, over to you guys. Let's get the show on the road. And I'm just going to remove this stuff, the hints, so that I have space to draw in as we start. Okay. Really dark in here. I'm going to open all my curtains because there is still some light. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions yet in the chat. But one of the things I think you guys should think about is this in standard form? And if it isn't, how would you get it into standard form?
We can do this, guys. We can do it. I see Fuzlin also, I guess, in the dark. So
yeah.
It's affecting everybody, guys.
Hang in there, guys. So if we're looking for A, B, and C, it looks to me like A, B, and C are just the X and Y intercepts. Huh? And so what we need to do is we need to find what those intercepts are. Can anybody tell me what the y-intercept is? So it's going to be the point B, and I want us to try and look at think about how do we get that. Nkanyezi.
I see Kanyezi's hand.
So
yes.
Y is equal to negative 2.
Yeah.
Y is equal to negative 2.
So you're absolutely right. If you look at the formula, the B is going to be negative 2, but it does say to write it in full coordinate form. So what's it going to be if I write it in full coordinate form? Oh, so it's not negative 2, it's Positive 2. I made a mistake in that. Sorry. Yeah. So that's a positive.
What?
Well done. Perfect, guys. That was me just having a moment. But what you see is that it's 2. And so B, like Dawn has said, the coordinate is going to be 0, 2. Okay, so that is B. Now, what about finding A and C? Now, those are the x-intercepts. And so what we find,
Well,
yeah.
in order to get the x-intercept, y has to equal to 0. So then you'd have to factorize it.
Yeah, you can either factorize it or use the formula. You basically have to solve this equation. And so if you can factorize it, it's probably easier to do it. I'm going to move everything to the other side. And I think that's what my brain was thinking about. So you're either going to use the formula, or if it can be factorized, so it is going to be, okay, so I want to see the answers in the chat. What do we think the answers are going to be, either from the formula or from factorizing?
Let's go, guys. Let's do this.
I want to see coordinates for A and C. But you're quite right. We have to solve this equation. And we either use the formula, which is this thing like this, or we can use factorizing. So I'm doing a factorizing one just because I hadn't done that many recently. But we should get, so I get x is minus 2 and x is 1, but now I need to give full coordinates, and A is going to be -2, 0, and then B, not B, it's going to be C. And the screen is so much smaller than normal. What is this? So C is going to be 1, 0. Okay. So would it be wrong to take out a negative instead of taking out to the other side? It wouldn't be wrong, Klecho. You should get the same answer though. Okay. So we've got our B, we've got our A, and we've got our C. What about the turning point? What is the turning point going to be of this particular graph? Now, there's actually a couple of different ways you can do it. The one way is to use that formula that I showed you, but there are other ways. So I'm going to give you a bit of time to work out what that is. And I'll just put you on the actual thing. This is -2. And C was 1. And that was 2. So what we're after is this thing over here, this point D, what we call the turning point. So Dawn, do you want to tell us how you got it? Would you be willing to share by coming online, or maybe giving us something in the chat? So the turning point, I'll give you this hint, the turning point will always be halfway between the two roots. So halfway between -2 and 1, or I use -2a is what you used. Okay, so Dawn said, I need to find, now the important bit is that it is in standard form. So if it's in standard form, it's going to be -1 over 2 times -1, which is -1/2. So take a moment to see how I used, there's a -1 here, and then A is also -1. And so I had to use these in my formula to get -1/2. And Dawn, how did you go from that? How did you go from now you've got -1/2, you have to put it into, or you have to do something to get the Y value, because you've only just figured out that basically this over here is -1/2, but I want D. So what did you do? Okay, exactly. So you sub it back into the original formula. And what was the original formula? It's either going to be this one over here or this one over here. They're both the same. And you just need to be careful that you don't make any silly mistakes. So you should end up with a positive value, not a negative value. Has anybody else got what Dawn got? So take -1/2, which is correct, and put it into that and see what you get as your turning point. But I know Dawn is correct because basically in order to get here, it's 1.5 units to get there and 1.5 units to get there. So it's halfway between the two roots. But I want to see, does anybody else get 1.25 or 1.25 as their Y value?
Well done to Dawn and everyone.
You take your negative. So you this and you go -1/2 squared minus -1/2. And then what's this? Sorry, the Zoom bubble keeps getting in the way. -1/2 and then +2. I want to see who else has got 1.25. So we get -1/4 plus 1/2 plus 2. I get 2. Let's have a look. 2, but you've done the -1/2 correctly. Oh, you also got 5/4. So if you put -1/2 squared, you get 1/4. And then there's still a negative in front. So you get -1/4 plus 1/2 plus 2. And because I'm in the dark, guys, what I get is I get 2.25 or 2.25. And the reason I know that that's correct is that we know that the turning point is the highest point. So it has to be above 2. So take a moment with the turning point here. I know where you guys are getting stuck. When you square -1/2, you get a positive 1/4. But remember, there's still a negative that's lurking in front. And then this over here, the two negatives here, they become a positive here. The other thing that makes me be sure that I kind of know that I'm on the right track is that 2 is my y-intercept, which means the turning point must be higher. And so the turning point for D is just going to be -1/2 and then 2.25. Okay, so give us a thumbs up if you, let's unmute you there.
Hi, sir.
How's it going?
I'm good, and you, sir?
Very good, but in the dark, but otherwise feeling fantastic.
So see with this turning point, did you use the original equation or did you use the standard form of the equation?
I used the standard form of the equation because when I use that formula -b/2a, it has to be written in the standard form. Does that make sense?
But yes, I get that, sir. But then wouldn't B then be +1 instead of -1?
So B would be, okay, so are you agreed that when I write the standard form at the very top here, -x squared minus x plus 2. So we agree on that.
Yes.
Now, the B value is whatever's in front of the x. In this case, it's going to be -1. Can you see that?
Okay.
A is also -1.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I want to add another question, guys. I want you to write down what is the range of the function f. We spoke a little bit about this in the last lesson. And all I'm going to say to you is the range talks about how high or how low the graph goes. So think about this graph like a ball that's being thrown up into the sky and then coming down. I want you to write down the range and then put it in the chat for me, because often they ask you about the range of a function. So I'm adding that question as a teacher for you. What's the range of this function f? Okay. So I'm waiting for answers in the chat. What is the range of this function called f? I'll even go in blue. Look, it's like a ball that's being thrown and it gets up to its highest height and then it just starts falling down. And it's almost like it keeps going down forever, but it never can get past a certain point. So what is the range? So the range is the y-intercept, right? I'm afraid not, Rachel. The range is all y values that are valid for this function. So if you look at my blue parabola, the highest point it gets to in life is d. It can never go above d. It can go below d. And so what we say for the range is it's less than or equal to something in this graph. The question is, what is that something? Now, Yolanda's giving a lovely description in the chat there. The range is all the y values that cover the graph. So basically, like, the range would include that value, it would include that value, but it never gets above that point. Okay, so the range is going to be y is less than 2.25 or 2.25. And so I just wanted to throw that question in. Now, there's another type of question that I'm not going to do the whole thing with you now, but I really want to just kind of bring out the idea of it a little bit. If I said to you, there was a straight line function that was on the same question, and this straight line went like this, and I asked you then, let's say, for example, this is going to be y equals, should we make it 2x plus a half? I just want to know, you don't have to work it out for me yet. We're going to do this later in the question. But what would be your strategy for finding these 2 points, what we call the intersection points? Is anybody able to come online or put it in the chat? How would you go about finding those points? I just want to check if you have a strategy for doing that. Okay, so Klakejo has said equate the two equations. Nyankagezi, do you have a strategy for us in Kanyezi?
So in some cases, you can actually use general solutions as well.
Okay, but what would your strategy be for finding these 2 points here?
Those 2 points there, so I think I agree with her. I would try to equate the 2 equations. I do struggle with finding the 2 points of the straight line.
Perfect. So if the one equation was 2x plus a half, and the other one was minus x squared minus x plus 2, all that we do to find intersection points is we equate them. Okay, so we're not going to solve this particular one, but this would be the equation we'd have to solve. Now, I want to take it one step further without solving it. What would the strategy be to go from this point to solving it? What would I need to do? I'd love someone to come online and just tell me, what would I do to solve this next one? In fact, I'm becoming curious. It's almost like I want to know the answer, but what would be the next strategy in this process? Come on, guys, help me out here.
Let's do this, guys. I know you got it. I know you got it.
So all you would do in order to solve this equation is you would move these things to the other side. And when you do that, you end up with, or you could also move, if you like, maybe it's easier to move all of these to one side. So move all the yellow ones across. And if I do that, I'm going to end up with x squared plus x minus 2 plus 2x plus a half. And then what I would do is I would collect my like terms. So I'd go x squared, so plus 3x, and then minus 1.5 equals 0. You know what, guys? Since we've almost done it, I want you to find me these two intersection points. So these two red dots, they're just too tempting. I want you to find for me what these values are. How are we going to find, what is the tool that we could use to solve for the values when it's a fraction like that, when it's a bit messy? I'd love to know from the community, what tool, who you're going to call. I want to say Ghostbusters, but what tool are you gonna use to help you solve this? Siyabonga, yes. What is it? Younger? Siyabonga?
Is on with us.
Can we use the quadratic formula?
Yes, that's exactly what you're going to do.
Done. Well done, guys. Ooh, I see it on the chat.
That's who you're going to call. You're going to call the quadratic formula because, and this is where being able to do the formula sometimes is a little bit less of a headache, because when there's fractions involved. Earlier in this question, we used the factorizing because it was a simple formula. Okay. And so you're going to have to help me with this one to make, but we know one of the answers, x will be negative and one of them will be positive because of looking at the graph probably, unless I draw it horribly. Okay. So in my equation, A is 1, B is 3, C is -3/2. And so I want to find, what are my answers? What is x going to be equal to? Because of time, I'm going to let you guys do this and hopefully we all agree and then we know what the answer is there.
You guys are doing really well. Let's go. It's like an exam question, or
it is an exam question. It's literally an exam question.
You see, guys, so we're getting all these marks. Look at that. That was 4 marks already in our pockets.
Okay, let me open up another window. Can you still see the screen, Yolanda? I'm just opening up another.
Yes, we can still see the screen.
So we've got put a math lesson like in literally complete darkness, but I think so far I'm showing Eskom his boss. Okay, plus. Okay, so you should get decimal answers. Okay, so Cameron's got one of the roots as 0.44. Does anybody agree with him? So Cameron, you kind of got the, so some of you may be getting some surds and stuff like that too. That's also fine. So -3.44 and 0.44. That makes a lot of sense to me when I'm looking at this drawing, because you can see the one on the far left here. Where's my pen gone? So the one answer that you're getting is the -3.44 here. And the other one over here is the 0.44 over here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my Bluetooth is being wonky, but you get the basic idea. So far what we're getting is the answer is negative 3.44 and X is 0.44. However, that's not the whole point. So how would I get the Y? In fact, guys, because of time today, I'm not going to go and do that, but basically you take this X value and you either of these two original, and then you get the Y. So I just want to have a quick thumbs up or thumbs down. You don't have to be perfect at this yet, but do you understand how to find the intersection points? Give us a thumbs up if it's good, and give us a thumbs down if you feel a bit like, I just want to see if I've given you a sense of the method. You still need to take these X values, like Dawn was saying, and put them back into the original equations. Okay. All right. Let us take, I can see a lot of us still need a bit of practice. We're about half and half, and we'll get that in the second half of the lesson. But what I want to do now is I want everybody on their feet, and I want you to do a little stretch with me in the dark. Okay, so while I'm in the dark, you can stretch. So, and Yolanda, if you could just encourage our good students to do their best stretching.
Let's go, guys. That's what
while we get ready for brain break.
Let's go, guys. Let's stretch. Stretch. You need it. Stretch. Any part of
stretch it out.
Bali, I see you, Bali Mango. Let's stretch, girl. Let's stretch. Let's do. Ooh, Luyanda, I like your stretch, girl. Look at that. You are having
I've got some lights. I've got some lights.
Anyezi, you need to stretch. I see you.
It's like a bit creepy.
And anyone that I cannot see your faces, guys, I hope you are stretching because it's really nice. It's really like a nice feeling to just stretch.
All right.
Yes, Ndokozo.
Stretch it out, guys. Stretch it out.
Let's
and
go,
then,
girl.
I still need to do my pitch. Once you've done that, we want you to try and do your brain break. And can anybody identify the cartoon that is involved today? It's another one going back to my childhood and perhaps yours too. Oh, a little bit.
I Cameroon got it. Everyone on the feet.
Who is in the... Okay, so yeah, the mystery van is 8. It's Scooby-Doo, exactly.
Well
Scooby-Doo. What is a Scooby-Doo plus a monster time the magical mystery van?
Yeah, the final answer, guys. Let's go. Let's give the final answer.
So 888. I can see that the magical mystery van is 8.
Who's
The
shining
zombie
today?
apparently is
Yeah.
9. So 8 times 9 is 72. Plus 8, I agree. Now, what is a Scooby-Doo going to be?
Guys, the last part. Who's getting it right? Who has
I want to see who gets this one here.
shine today? Let's go. Who's getting it? Who's taking the shine of the day? Woo! Akameron, I see you. Well done.
So I think, so 54, no, I think the Scooby-Doo is the key. I think once you get the Scooby-Doo is what? Cameron has an idea. Kaklejo agrees. Scooby-Doo is 5, because 5 times 9 is 45, plus 9 is 54. Yes, I agree. Scooby-Doo is 5, so what's the final answer going to be? It's going to be, you guys have beat me to it. Yes, Dawn. Yes, Mansoor. It's 77. Okay. Well done. Well done. Okay, so that was a good blast from the past. So how can you see in the dark? I can see the screen. It has enough light, and also my graphics tablet is a Bluetooth one, and so I can see enough to do the job. Okay, part 2. So what I want to do is, this is a, let's have a look. -2, calculate the turning point. So this is basically, just to clarify, we are taking this question as being that. I want you to calculate these first 3 things for me, and then I want you to sketch the graph. After you've done that, we'll talk separately about these last 2 questions. Okay, but using your, basically you need to do each of these pieces, and I want you to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so I will give you a little bit less time. I'm giving you 5 minutes to basically finish 4.1 to 4.3 or 4.1 to 4.4. And then I will take questions while you guys are working with the stuff, and we'll work through it together. But I want you to do that for me now. Okay, over to you guys. The difference here is it's not a 5-step process like we did before. It's actually asking you to find the turning point at the very beginning. So you have to start with that. Let's do it.
Yes, guys, we can do this. We can do it. Let's go. So just keep in mind, if you do learn perfectly well for these questions, you know that like you're sorted in terms of like questions on how they ask questions and everything. You'll be good to answer these questions at the end of the year, or actually even in September, because some of them.
I mean, what you can see is that like it repeats itself. The questions have the same types of things in them all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that you start to feel like, oh, there's a pattern here. There's something going on that I recognize. You should get a quarter for your axis of symmetry, but now they want the full turning point. And so I want to see in the chat, what is the full turning point? Because remember, it's not just the quarter. The turning point has 2 parts.
God done.
And what do we have to do? We have to take that quarter and we have to put it back into this original equation to get the rest of my turning point. So I want to see the chat light up with answers from many people. Okay, in Kanyezi and Dawn, we're similar, except the one is negative and the one is positive. So let's make sure who's graph. I think that since it's an unhappy graph and the y-intercept is at 6, I'm thinking it probably has to be positive 49 over 8. Let's see who else, if you agree or not.
Ganyezi agrees with you. Cameron also agrees with you.
Okay, I'm missing the... Does anybody else get 49 over 8?
Teacher Peter, I'm not sure whether it is your network or mine, but you're cutting. Oh, okay. So Teacher Peter will join us soon, guys. And there's Teacher Peter. Welcome back, sir. We have you again.
I'm back. Okay.
Are you back?
So,
okay.
guys, what we were talking about is this y-intercept. We get 49 over 8. So for that, sorry guys, my internet connection seems to be struggling at the moment. So basically that's our turning point. What about the x-intercepts? So to find, or the y-intercept is just going to be 6. And the reason the y-intercept is going to be 6 is that to find the y-intercept, you just make x 0. Okay? Now to find the x-intercept, what you need to do is you need to solve that equation. And so that's what I want to see in the actual chat. I want to see the turning points. I want to see the y-intercept. I want to see the x-intercept that you get. Okay, I see Dawn's put her x-intercepts there. I see Abnego has put their x-intercepts there. You can use the formula or you can use factorizing.
You guys are awesome. You're doing this.
Okay, so you should have got, and there's a number of ways to do it, but either the formula or factorizing, you should have got x is minus 3 over 2 or x is 2. Now you need to draw your graph for me. Okay, so remember how to draw the graph? How do we do that? Let's see if I can draw my graph in this space over here. So I always like to put my axis of symmetry down first to give me a little bit of a guiding space. And since the axis of symmetry is actually just going to be x is a quarter. And then I need to put my dots on the Cartesian plane in the right places. So I'll give you a bit more time for that. So draw your Cartesian plane, put in your axis of symmetry, which is this number. Remember, we can take the axis of symmetry from the turning point. It'll always be the x value in the turning point. Now, in our normal 5-step process for drawing a parabola, we always start by asking, is this happy or unhappy? And this particular parabola is unhappy. You can see it in the formula. So let's see what else we have to do. Minus 3 over 2 is going to be on this side somewhere over here. And 2 is probably going to be somewhere over there. It's on a perfect scale graph here. And then the y-intercept was at 6. So up here. And then the turning point is just going to be a little bit above that. And so we should have Again, apologies for the non-perfect. It should be curved. So those are the important points that we have. And then I'm going to label them. It's minus 3/2. It's going to be 2. It's going to be 6. And the turning point here is going to be 1/4, 49/8. And the function was called the function f. And so we label it with f. Okay. In the chat, can you just give me a thumbs up if you feel like you know the process for drawing a parabola, and give us a thumbs down if you feel like you still feel very unsure? Just want to get a sense from everyone how they're feeling. Okay. What I want to do now, okay, don't worry, we're going to give you more chance to practice if you're unsure still. And also, if you've missed the previous lessons, I highly recommend that you keep looking back at those old lessons, and that will help you a bit. So I just want to I'm going to leave out 4.5 for now. In fact, let's leave out 4.5 and 4.6. Let's do another one like this, and then we'll deal with these other types of questions after that. So take a screenshot if you need to of what's on the screen. So take that screenshot.
Fine, guys, take your screenshot.
And okay. And then let's go to another example. All right. So we're going to finish with this question today. We have about 15 minutes or so left. This is a typical exam question. And in this question, they've actually given you some information already about the parabola. And then they've also got another thing called G, which is a straight line. And one of the points on G is given to you. I don't know if you can, maybe I should zoom in a little bit on the G, and I can make it a bit bigger. You can see that a bit better. Okay, what do you need to do? So I want you to answer for me. Make this a bit smaller. I want you to I want you to answer 2.1 to 2.3 to start with. So you are going to do 2.1 to 2.3, and then after that, we will talk about 2.4 and 2.5. Over to you guys for 2.1 to 2.3. Main, always X is an element of the reals. It is for parabola, yes. In a parabola, it will always be X is any real number, because basically, any X value that I put into this function f will give you an output Y value. So it doesn't matter, any X is valid. It's only when we get to things like the hyperbola where some X values are not allowed. And we're going to get to that in later lessons. But both the straight line and the parabola will take any X value, which means the domain is not restricted. It's anything. However, the range of a parabola is a slightly different story. And that's what we're going to work on in this question. Okay. So we're starting by finding the x-intercepts B and C. And then they also want the axis of symmetry of f. So they want to know where's my turning point? My turning point's there. They want to know what is the equation of that line, which basically cuts the parabola in half. Excuse my slightly messy writing. So you'll notice what's a little bit different about how they do the questions is they don't ask you to do like everything from scratch and draw a graph. They break it up into little pieces, and you have to grab the little piece that you need.
We can do this, guys. Let's go.
Okay, I see a couple of answers coming through. Basically, to find the x-intercepts, you basically have that equation. So for 2.1, you need to solve that equation, and what do you get? And you can solve it, you can move it around, you can use the formula, doesn't matter. Keep those answers coming. So you should be getting x is 2 or x is -3. So this should be -3, this should be 2.
Well done, guys. You did it.
All right. Yes, Brittany. Yes. Kailetu. Now, what about the axis of symmetry? How are we going to find that? So this is 2.1. What about that? Well, we know that formula, don't we? Let's grab this. So the formula that we need is going to be minus b over 2a, where it's in standard form, and it is in standard form here. So who's going to tell me the axis of symmetry? It's basically this line over here is what we're after. What do you guys get? Okay, so be careful. It's -1 over 2 times -1. So that's going to be a positive, and then on the top, so +1 on the top, and a -2 on the bottom. So we get -1/2. Yeah. So this line is going to be x is -1/2. And so that's going to be the answer for 2.2. Loretta, I agree with you. Yeah. So 1 over -2 is the same as -1/2. Now, the next question for the range doesn't really care about the x values. What it cares about is the y value. And my hint to you is, you know the x value of the turning point. If only you could figure out what the y value is, that might help you figure out the range of this graph. So in the chat, if you could put the turning point, the full turning point, if you can figure it out, and then write down what the range is for your particular parabola that you see here, because that's question 2.3, determine the range. So what is I'm giving you a big hint there. You really want to find out what the full turning point is. You know the first part is -1/2, but you need to know what the other bit is, and then use that to answer the question. Oratile. So Oratile, I'm assuming that you're saying that the turning point's other value is 25/4. That's what I'm seeing in the chat. And who else confirms that? Kaklejo, you also get that. All right, so now what's the range going to be? The range is going to be about the y's. And what else do we know about the y's? Okay, is it going to be greater than, or is it going to be less than? Okay, so Dawn, the a value in the a value in the thing can be negative. Yeah, it can be. It's going to be less than Oratile. Perfect. So it's going to be less than or equal to 25/4, because the biggest value this parabola ever gets to in life is 25/4, which is up here. Right, so that's over there. It's just above 6, which is the y-intercept. So you say all y values that are less than or equal to the highest point are going to be the range. Okay. So just to point that out, are there any questions about that? Like raise your hand if there's any questions. But basically, I'm looking to find what the highest point is. And the highest point is 25 over 4, which is on the turning point. It's over here, 25 over 4. I know that y can only be at that point or lower. And so that's why I know what the range is. Okay, now, what I want to do is I want to end this lesson by answering questions 2.4 and 2.5. Calculate the average gradient between A and D. So first of all, where is A and where is D? Well, A is the point, I'll draw it in here. It's a little bit small on the screen. It's minus 2, 4. And D is the y-intercept, as far as I can see. And the y-intercept's coordinates are 0, 6. So I want you guys to work out, when they say calculate the average gradient, they just mean find the gradient between A and D. And so I want you guys to work that out now. And then, once you've worked out that gradient, I want you to work out the equation of this line G, which is over here. And then we might even be able to squeeze in 2.6, and then we're done for today.
We can do this, guys. We can do it. All these marks. Imagine a bag.
In the bag. Okay, so what the gradients are going to be, so just, it's good to go back and see so often how to do it. So 6 minus 4 and 0 minus minus 2. So 2 over 2, which is 1.
I think Kelani has a question for us.
The gradient is 1. So look. Kelani, go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. I just
Hello.
wanted to ask, how did you get 25 over 4 to figure out the range?
Okay. So the turning point, once I knew what the axis of symmetry was, the axis of symmetry told me the x value of the turning point. So if you look at this line, I knew that the x value was 25 over 4 here. Sorry, not 25, it was negative a half. Are you with me on that? So then I took negative a half and I subbed it back into the original equation at the top, which was minus x squared minus x plus 6. So I basically used this equation over here. That's what I did. Okay, what is the equation of G, the straight line? So this is actually a little bit quicker than normal because you know what the y-intercept is. You know that it's mx plus c, and you know this is 1, so it's 1x plus c. But look at the graph. You can see it goes through the y-intercept at D, or what you can do is you can just plug a point in. But you already know that the point 0.6 is on this line. So what is the final equation of the straight line going to be? So you know the gradient is 1, which you just worked out. And so the final equation is just going to be to replace the c, and you get y equals 1x plus 6. And that will be the equation of my straight line. Okay, now I want to leave you with a little teaser for the next lesson. We haven't got to question 2.6 tonight, but I want to ask you, if you had to go from standard form, okay, into the alternate form of a parabola. So 2.6, it says here, like, do all these things, but one of the skills you need to know is how do you go from a standard form to the alternate form or the turning point form? And I just want to end the lesson by asking you that question. What do you need to know to translate between the two? What's the one important point you need to use? So the one important point that you need to use is going to be the turning point. So remember, the turning point form is P has to do with the X value and Q has to do with the Y value. And so in the next lesson, I'm actually not going to touch it now, but in the next lesson, we'll talk a little bit about how we can go between the standard form and the turning point form. And the honest truth is that the A value stays the same. It's the same A value. P, we can just switch the sign around with the X, and the Q will stay the same. Guys, we're going to call it there for tonight. We're going to carry on in the next lesson with more stuff with straight lines and parabolas. But if I could just ask you, Linda, to put the poll out so we can do a poll on tonight's lesson and how the students felt the pacing was. And yeah, guys, respect for working hard and being here in your holiday. It really is impressive, and your hard work deserves praise.